What would you do if, instead of wishing you a happy birthday, your parents said, "Pack your things. You will be leaving today"? That is exactly what happened to me. Please take a look at the following content. Birthdays are supposed to be special. At least that's what I always believed. A day to feel loved, to feel noticed, to feel like you matter in this world. Growing up, I didn't have big parties or colorful balloons, but deep down, I always hoped that one day, maybe just once, my birthday would feel different, that it would feel magical. And this one was supposed to be the most important of them all. My 18th, the day I became an adult, the day I thought freedom would taste sweet, the day the world would open its arms and welcome me in. I woke up that morning with a fragile sense of hope. I stared at the ceiling, whispering to myself, maybe this year will be different. Maybe they'll remember. Maybe they'll finally care. The house was quiet when I got up. I could hear the faint clinking of dishes, the smell of coffee drifting through the air. For a moment, I smiled. Maybe there was a surprise waiting for me downstairs. Maybe, just maybe, they'd remembered. I walked into the kitchen, holding on to that tiny flicker of hope. My parents sat at the table, their faces blank, their eyes glued to their mugs. They didn't look up. No smile, no good morning, no happy birthday. I stood there, frozen, waiting for someone to say something, anything. But the silence stretched, heavy and sharp, until my mom finally lifted her head. Her eyes weren't warm. They weren't filled with joy. They were cold, flat, and unyielding. "We need to talk," she said. My heart sank instantly. She gestured for me to sit. I did, my hands trembling under the table, my throat dry. My father leaned forward, his face stern, his voice sharper than I had ever heard. "You're 18 now," he said. "It's time you take responsibility for your own life. You've been living under this roof long enough. We've decided it's time for you to move out." At first, I thought I misheard him. I laughed nervously, waiting for the punchline, but there was none. His eyes were hard, unforgiving. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, her silence louder than any words. "Wait, what?" I stammered. "Today? You're kicking me out? Today? On my birthday?" "Don't be dramatic," my mother snapped. "We've done our part. Now it's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. That's what adulthood means." The room tilted. My chest tightened. My 18th birthday, the day I thought might finally be different, was the day they chose to throw me away. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to beg them to change their minds. But instead, I sat there in stunned silence, the walls closing in around me. The rest of that morning was a blur. I remember stumbling back to my room, pulling out a duffel bag and shoving clothes inside with shaking hands. Every shirt, every pair of jeans felt like proof that I didn't belong anymore, that I was unwanted. My parents didn't come to check on me. They didn't ask if I needed help. They just waited downstairs like it was any other day. No cake, no candles, no happy birthday. When I finally walked out with my bag slung over my shoulder, I paused at the door. I looked back, hoping, praying, that one of them would stop me, that they'd break, that they'd show me some sign of love, but they didn't. They just watched. And in that moment, something inside me broke. The air outside felt different that day, colder, sharper. Maybe it was just me. Maybe it was the way pain makes the world seem harsher. I stood on the front steps, clutching my bag, staring at the street like it was foreign ground. Neighbors walked by, some glancing curiously, but no one stopped. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the ground so no one would see the 18-year-old whose parents had just thrown him out. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from my best friend. "Happy birthday, man. Big 18, we gotta celebrate tonight." The words blurred as tears welled in my eyes. How could I explain? How could I tell him that while everyone else turned 18 with cake and laughter, I turned 18 with nothing but a bag and broken trust? I started walking. My legs carried me aimlessly, my mind spinning. I thought about sleeping at the bus station. I thought about knocking on my friend's door. But pride, stupid pride, kept me from asking for help. If my own parents didn't want me, why would anyone else? Hours passed. The sun dipped lower, the shadows stretched longer. My stomach growled, but I ignored it. I sat on a park bench, hugging my bag to my chest, watching families pass by, kids holding balloons, parents laughing, couples sharing ice cream. Every smile was a knife twisting deeper. I remembered birthdays when I was little. They weren't perfect, but they still meant something. I remembered being 5, blowing out candles on a cake my grandmother made. I remembered being 10 when my dad actually took me to the arcade, just the two of us. I remembered thinking back then that maybe things would get better when I was older, but now I was older, and it wasn't better, it was worse. By the time night fell, I was shaking, not just from the chill, but from the emptiness gnawing inside me. Finally, I swallowed my pride and called my friend. He picked up on the first ring, his voice full of excitement. But the moment he heard mine, his tone softened. Within an hour, he came to get me. He didn't ask many questions. He just let me crash on his couch, handed me a blanket, and told me I could stay as long as I needed. I wanted to thank him, but the words stuck in my throat. Gratitude and humiliation tangled together until I couldn't speak. That night, lying there on his couch, I stared at the ceiling, wide awake. The sounds of his house were so different from mine, warm, alive, filled with a kind of quiet comfort I had never known. But instead of peace, all I felt was rage. Rage at my parents for discarding me. Rage at myself for still wishing they would call, apologize, tell me it was all a mistake. Rage at the thought that maybe they would never regret it. And in that sleepless haze, a dangerous thought struck me. My parents thought they had all the power. They thought they could kick me out, cut me off, and I would just vanish from their lives like a bad memory. But they were wrong, because I wasn't powerless. I knew things. I knew their routines. I knew their bank details. I knew secrets they thought I wasn't paying attention to. But I had been watching, listening, remembering. And as the first light of dawn crept through the blinds, I made a silent vow to myself. If they wanted me gone, fine. But I wouldn't disappear quietly. One day, I would make them understand what it felt like to lose everything. That day wasn't just my birthday. It was the day the old me died, and something else, something darker, was born. Lying awake on my friend's couch that night, I realized something terrifying. The pain hadn't left. It had transformed. At first, all I felt was emptiness. But as the hours stretched on, as the shadows crept across the ceiling, that emptiness hardened into something sharper. Rage. I was furious at them, at myself, at the world. Furious that on the one day I needed to feel loved, I had been cast aside like garbage. Furious that even as I lay there, humiliated and homeless, a small, pathetic part of me still wished my phone would light up with a text from my parents saying, "We're sorry, come home." But the screen stayed dark. Yes, the next few days blurred together. My friend tried to cheer me up, cracking jokes, offering food, telling me I could stay as long as I wanted. I was grateful, truly. But every laugh he forced, every kindness he offered only made me feel smaller. Because it wasn't supposed to be him. It was supposed to be them, my parents. I would catch myself staring at the ceiling at night, hearing echoes of their voices. "You're 18 now. It's time you move out." Cold, final, unforgiving. And the more I replayed those words, the angrier I became. Anger has a way of digging up memories you try to bury. I remembered being 12 years old, sitting quietly at the kitchen table, pretending to do homework while my mom balanced the checkbook. I remembered the way my dad muttered passwords under his breath, numbers and phrases tied to anniversaries, birthdays, even my name. Little things I wasn't supposed to notice, but I did. I remembered the years of being ignored, birthdays forgotten, achievements brushed aside as if they meant nothing. I remembered standing in the living room at 14, holding up a school certificate, only to be told, "That's nice, but did you take out the trash?" Every memory became fuel. Every slight became gasoline poured onto the fire. And then the thought came, the one I had pushed away at first, but now, in my anger, felt almost righteous. I wasn't powerless. They thought they had cut me off, shut the door, erased me from their lives, but they had forgotten something. I knew their secrets. I knew how to get into their accounts. I knew how to turn the tables. The idea terrified me at first. I wasn't a criminal. I wasn't some mastermind hacker. I was just a broken kid on a friend's couch. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. They had thrown me away without a second thought. Why should they get to sip coffee in comfort, living their perfect lives while I sat here, stripped of everything? No. They needed to feel it. They needed to know what it was like to lose control. So one night, when the house was quiet and my friend was asleep, I pulled out my phone. My hands shook, not from fear anymore, but from adrenaline. The bank's website stared back at me, clean and simple. Username, password. I closed my eyes, breathing hard, summoning every scrap of memory, and then I typed. The first attempt, wrong. The second, closer. The third, click. The page loaded, and just like that, I was in. I stared at the screen, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Rows of numbers glared back at me, balances, transactions, accounts neatly laid out, the digital version of their lives. I laughed, a short bitter sound that scared even me. For years I had felt invisible, overlooked, and now here I was staring at proof that I wasn't powerless. But I didn't touch the money, not yet. That would be too easy, too quick. No, I wanted them to feel it. I dug deeper, clicking through settings, exploring options. And then I found it. Freeze account. My finger hovered over the button. My chest rose and fell in sharp bursts. This was it. The line I couldn't uncross. Once I pressed it, their perfect world would start to unravel. My mind flooded with images. My mother's cold stare as she told me to pack my bags. My father's stern voice, unbending, unloving. The silence that hung heavy in the kitchen that morning. The empty doorway as I walked out, waiting for someone, anyone, to stop me. And then the final memory. Me, standing on the porch, tears in my eyes as they turned their backs. I pressed the button. Confirmation popped up. Account frozen. It was done. For a moment, I just sat there staring at the glowing screen. My breath came in ragged gasps, my hands trembling. A wave of emotions crashed over me, fear, relief, triumph, but above all, satisfaction. They had taken everything from me. Now I was taking something back. I refreshed the page again and again, watching as the system reassured me, yes, it's real. Yes, you did this. For the first time since my birthday, I slept deeply, not peacefully, but with a strange, dark comfort. Because in the silence of that night, I realized something. My parents had created this monster, and now they would have to live with him. The following morning, I woke up different. Not broken, not hollow. Sharper, stronger. Like I had finally found the weapon I had been missing my whole life. I kept checking the bank app throughout the day, half expecting it to magically reverse itself. But it didn't. It stayed locked, cold and untouchable. I imagined them at the grocery store, swiping their card only to hear the beep of denial. I pictured the confusion, the frustration, the humiliation spreading across their faces, and I smiled. It was a dangerous smile, one I barely recognized, but I didn't care. For years, they had made me feel small, invisible, worthless. Now, they were the ones about to feel powerless. And it was only the beginning. That night, as I lay back on the couch, staring at the shadows dancing across the ceiling, I whispered to myself, they thought my 18th birthday was the day they cut me off. But they were wrong. It was the day I began writing the story of their downfall. And for the first time in my life, I drifted off to sleep not as a victim, but as someone with power. Dark power, maybe, but power nonetheless. Tomorrow, the cracks in their perfect world would begin to show, and I couldn't wait to watch it all unfold. The first call came 2 days later. I was scrolling aimlessly on my phone when the screen lit up with a name I knew too well, Mom. For a split second, my heart stuttered. A tiny broken part of me wanted to believe she was calling to apologize, to beg me to come home, to finally admit she had been wrong. But deep down, I already knew the truth. I let it ring out. An hour later, my father's number appeared. Then again. Then a text, short and clipped. Something's wrong with the bank. Call us. I felt a bitter smile tug at my lips. So it had begun. That evening, the messages poured in. My mother's words grew more frantic with each notification. Our cards aren't working. Did you touch something? We can't access our account. I didn't respond. I just watched, each buzz of my phone like a victory drumbeat. For once, they were the ones panicking, while I sat in silence, calm, collected. By the next morning, their tone had shifted. My father's text was blunt, almost threatening. If you had anything to do with this, fix it. Now. I laughed out loud. For years, his voice had cowed me, made me shrink, made me feel worthless. But now, his words had no power. His threats meant nothing. The whispers reached me before long. Neighbors talked. A friend who still lived nearby texted me updates like little morsels of gossip. They tried to pay for groceries. Card declined 3 times. Your dad yelled at the cashier. Your mom cried at the pharmacy. People are saying they must be broke. It was everything I had imagined, and more. For people like my parents, who lived for appearances, humiliation was sharper than hunger. Their pride had always been their armor, their shield against the world. And now, that armor was cracking. Bills piled up. Utilities were cut off one by one. The once warm house grew darker each night, its windows black, its hallways cold. My father tried to pick up extra shifts at work, but without access to his own accounts, even his paycheck became tangled in red tape. My mother started selling jewelry, furniture, anything she could scrape together, but it was never enough. I didn't need to imagine their downfall. I could see it with my own eyes. One evening, I walked past the old house, careful to stay in the shadows. The lawn, once perfectly trimmed, was overgrown. Weeds pushed through the cracks in the driveway. Trash bags sat piled by the curb. The house itself looked abandoned. Through a sliver in the curtains, I saw them. My mother sat at the kitchen table, papers scattered around her like fallen leaves, her face pale and drawn. My father sat beside her, head in his hands, his broad shoulders slumped in defeat. They didn't look like the invincible people who had raised me. They didn't look like the cold, unbending parents who had thrown me out. They looked small, fragile, human. For a moment, guilt stabbed me, sharp and unwelcome. This was still my family. These were still the people who had given me life. But then I remembered that morning, the silence, the coldness, the way they had told me to leave without flinching, the way not one of them had said, "Please stay," and the guilt evaporated. The calls became relentless, dozens a day. "We need your help. Please, just talk to us. We can't live like this. Then one night, a message that almost broke me. We're sorry. 2 words, just 2. But they landed in my chest like a hammer. I stared at the screen for a long time, my hands trembling. I had waited 18 years to hear those words, to see them written, to know they were capable of admitting fault. But the more I read them, the more bitter they tasted. Were they really sorry? Or were they just sorry for themselves, for the comfort they'd lost, the humiliation they couldn't bear? I didn't reply. I couldn't. And then one night, I finally picked up. The line was quiet for a long moment before I heard it, my mother's voice trembling, raw. "Sweetheart, please. We've lost everything. We need you." Behind her, my father's voice cracked, weaker than I had ever heard it. "Son, I was wrong. We were wrong. Just help us fix this." I should have smiled. I should have felt victorious. After all, wasn't this what I wanted? For them to crawl, to beg, to finally understand the pain they had caused me? But instead, my throat tightened. My eyes burned. Because I had never heard them like this before. My mother sobbed openly, her words spilling like broken glass. "I don't know why we did it. I thought pushing you out would make you strong. I thought it was the right thing. But it wasn't. It was cruel. I was cruel." And then my father, the man who had never once said he was wrong, choked out words I never thought I'd hear. "I failed you. As a father. As a man. I failed." The silence that followed was unbearable. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding so hard it hurt. My entire life I had waited for this moment, and now that it was here, I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to hang up, to let them sit in the ruins they had built, to remind them that forgiveness wasn't something you could buy with tears. But another part, the smaller, quieter part, ached to believe them, to believe that maybe, just maybe, they finally saw me. I swallowed hard, my voice shaking as I finally spoke. "You don't get to just say sorry. You don't get to erase what you did. You kicked me out on my birthday. You abandoned me when I needed you most." On the other end, silence. Then my mother's broken whisper. "I know, and I will regret it until the day I die." My father's voice cracked again. "We just want our family back. Please, please, son." Tears slid down my face before I even realized I was crying. I wiped them away angrily, hating that even after everything, they still had the power to break me. I didn't give them an answer. I couldn't. I hung up, my hands trembling, my chest aching with emotions I didn't know how to name. Anger, grief, love, hate, all tangled together until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. That night, I lay awake for hours, staring into the dark, my mind replaying their voices, their words, over and over, and I realized something that terrified me more than anything else. Revenge had given me power, but forgiveness, that was a power I wasn't sure I could handle, because if I forgave them, what would become of me? For days, I avoided their calls. Every buzz of my phone, every desperate voicemail, every shaky text, it all felt like a weight pressing down on me. I silenced it, shut it out, but their voices lingered in my head like echoes I couldn't escape. "We're sorry. Please, we need you. Forgive us." Words I had once begged for. Now they haunted me. But the image of me standing on that porch with my bag slung over my shoulder, tears streaming down my face, burned brighter. That memory whispered, "How do you forgive that?" And it was a Saturday afternoon when it happened. I had gone back to the old neighborhood, not really knowing why. Maybe curiosity, maybe anger, maybe some twisted desire to see what had become of them with my own eyes. When I turned the corner, I froze. There they were, my parents, sitting on the porch of what used to be our perfect home. but they didn't look perfect anymore. My mother's once polished hair was unkempt, her face pale and streaked with exhaustion, her eyes swollen from sleepless nights. My father, once strong, proud, untouchable, looked smaller than I had ever seen him. His shoulders slumped, his hands trembling slightly as he stared at the ground. When they noticed me, both froze. Then my mother's eyes filled instantly with tears. "Sweetheart," she whispered. Her voice cracked, and she stood as if afraid I might disappear. "You came." My father's lips parted. Just one word left him, soft, broken. "Son." I stood there, my chest tight, my feet glued to the sidewalk. My heart hammered so loud I thought they could hear it. 1,000 emotions surged inside me: rage, grief, longing, fear. Part of me wanted to run into their arms like a child. Another part wanted to turn and walk away forever. Finally, my voice broke through, raw and trembling. "Why?" The word hung in the air, heavier than a scream. "Why did you do it? Why did you throw me out on my birthday of all days?" My mother covered her mouth, sobbing. My father looked down, ashamed. "We thought we were teaching you strength," he said quietly. His voice shook with regret. "We thought if we pushed you, you'd grow. But it wasn't strength we gave you, it was pain. And we'll regret that for the rest of our lives." Tears blurred my vision. I hated them for what they had done, but I hated myself more for still wanting to believe them. Then Mother took a tentative step forward, her hand trembling as she reached out. "Please, come home. Let us try again. We don't care about the money, the house, the things. We just want you." Her words sliced through me, leaving me raw. Time seemed to freeze. In that moment, I saw two futures stretching before me. In one, I turned away, leaving them to crumble in the ruins of their choices. In the other, I stepped forward, choosing forgiveness, risking my heart all over again. Neither promised peace. But standing there, staring into the tear-streaked faces of the people who had given me life, I realized something. Revenge had run its course. I had made them feel the emptiness they once forced onto me. I had broken them the way they had broken me, and yet, watching them now, shattered and pleading, I felt no triumph, only exhaustion, only grief, because hate is heavy, and I was tired of carrying it. I drew in a shaky breath. My voice cracked as I whispered, "I don't know if I can ever forgive you. Not fully. Not yet. But I don't want to hate you anymore." My mother collapsed into sobs, her hands covering her face. My father's lips trembled as he nodded, eyes shining with tears. "That's enough," he whispered. "That's more than we deserve." Slowly, hesitantly, I stepped forward. My mother's arms wrapped around me first, desperate, clinging as if she might never let go. Then my father's arms encircled us both, strong yet trembling. And for the first time in years, I was held by both of them. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't healing overnight. The scars were still there, raw and deep, but it was something. And in that broken embrace, I realized the truth. Revenge had given me power, but forgiveness, fragile, imperfect forgiveness, gave me freedom. As the sun dipped behind the house that had once been both my prison and my home, I finally let myself cry. Not from anger, not from triumph, but from release. Because after everything, after all the pain, the abandonment, the collapse, I was finally free.